Good evening, everyone. We'll begin the readout tonight with breaking news out of Georgia. Just moments ago, the Republican governor signed sweeping new voter restrictions into law. Passed along party lines in the Republican-led state legislature, the measure curtails early voting in runoff elections, limits ballot drop boxes, and requires documentation to vote by mail. Voter suppression efforts came up at President Biden's first press conference earlier today and elicited his most passionate response.
What I'm worried about is how un-American this whole initiative is. It's sick. It's sick. Deciding in some states that you cannot bring water to people standing in line, waiting to vote. Deciding that you're going to end voting at 5 o'clock when working people are just getting off work. The Republican voters I know find this despicable. Republican voters. This makes Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle. I mean, this is gigantic, what they're trying to do, and it cannot be sustained.
Biden committed to do everything in his power to ensure equal access to the ballot box. He also called for the reform of the Senate filibuster, which has been used expertly by Mitch McConnell to kill Democratic legislation since the Obama-Biden years. Biden says the system has been abused, and he warned Republicans that he could back efforts to gut the filibuster, agreeing that it is a relic of the old Jim Crow South.
We're going to get a lot done, and if we have to, if there's complete lockdown and chaos as a consequence of the filibuster, then we'll have to go beyond what I'm talking about.
Regarding the filibuster, at John Lewis's funeral, President Barack Obama said he believed the filibuster was a relic of the Jim Crow era. Do you agree?
Yes.
Biden opened the news conference with the announcement that he set a new goal in the fight against the pandemic, doubling the goal to 200 million vaccinations before the end of his first 100 days, having already met the initial mark. And when it comes to immigration, he dismissed the knee-jerk criticism from Republicans who are standing in the way of a solution.
Have you had any talks with Senate Republicans who are threatening this administration with not considering the immigration legislation that was passed in the House until the situation at the border has been resolved?
No, because I know they have to posture for a while. They sort of got to get out of their system. But I'm ready to work with any Republican who wants to help solve the problem.
Joining me now is Adrian Elrod, former senior aide to the Biden, Harris, and Hillary Clinton campaigns. Jason Johnson, professor of journalism and politics at Morgan State University. And David Plouffe, former Obama campaign manager. I'm going to go right down the center of my screen here to Jason Johnson on this breaking news that we're now seeing out of Georgia. You've covered Georgia for a very long time. You know the players here involved. Brian Kemp tonight tried to make an excuse and say that people who are accusing people like him of being Jim Crow characters are wrong. But this bill seems very much aimed at two things, in my view. Number one, and making it much harder for black and brown folks, particularly in places like Fulton County, to vote, and also maybe getting Brian Kemp reelected against Stacey Abrams. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Brian Kemp knows he's in trouble next year. Brian Kemp knows that his state is trending against his retrograde, idiotic policies. And Brian Kemp is a feckless coward, and he always has been. And no matter what he does, this is the trick with Trumpism, right, Joy? He thinks that by passing this bill, somehow that's going to protect him next year. No, it won't. He's going to get primaried anyway. The Republicans are going to kick him out of office because they know if Brian Kemp goes head-to-head with Stacey Abrams, he's going to lose next year. So this is absolutely pointless as far as saving his job. In the grander scheme of things, it's offensive, it's racist, it's pointless, it's non-productive, and that's why people like LaTosha Brown and Black Voters Matter and the New Georgia Project and everyone else is organizing down there to put pressure on Coca-Cola, Delta, and everybody else, because these laws aren't just foolish. These laws aren't just racist, but they are destructive to a functional democracy. They're taking power out of the hands of local elected officials. They're making it more difficult for people to even go to drop boxes. So there is no value to this. And I think this is just the opening salvo. I think there's going to be a long, extended battle in this state. And ultimately, I think they're going to lose because the demographics of Georgia and the financial incentives in Georgia make keeping laws like this on the books dangerous for everybody involved.
Yeah, absolutely. 2 words, Tyler Perry. There's a whole industry down there. They're called New Hollywood in the South, in Georgia. Georgia ain't the same Georgia that it was before. David Plouffe, I have to go to you next because you have actually had the experience of electing a black man named Barack Hussein Obama to the White House, which is not exactly an easy feat to do in the United States of America. You know, it strikes me that the idea that the way that you beat a growing demographic that is diverse is by attempting to do open suppression of that demographic and anyone else who isn't white. Because it seems to me that these bills are also motivational to the very people that they really don't want to vote in Georgia. And I don't understand the politics of it from Kemp's point of view, because I agree with Jason. He's already an anathema because he isn't Trumpy enough for the Republicans. And why he thinks this is just going to not further bury him, I don't understand. But can you understand this as politics?
I can't. Well, Joy, it's political malpractice in the long term for Republicans, but they don't think beyond their nose. So they just want to advantage themselves in 22 and 24. But I think, you know, you saw in 2008, after Barack Obama's first election, a whole bunch of legislation was passed out in the states to make it harder to vote and register. We did try to use that as motivation. But what's happening in Georgia, this is a death sentence for democracy. If we see laws like this across the country, you know, making it harder to register, getting rid of jock boxes, early votes. But Joy, they are taking power away from election officials and giving it to the state legislature. They're also talking about that in Arizona, which means if they don't like the result of the election, they will overturn it. So if the Senate does not pass the For the People Act, we should turn the lights off on this democracy. I mean this seriously. This is the end. This is the beginning of the end. There'll be lawsuits and there'll be a lot of pressure like Jason talked about in Georgia. We need it all. But the Senate has to act or we are going down the tubes quickly in this country.
Well, exactly. And Adrian, I think the thing that is the most shocking is that, you know, these Republicans pretend that they opposed what happened on January 6th when supporters of Donald Trump laid siege upon the Capitol. But now they're quickly trying to enact the very kinds of things these people were demanding. You know, as David just said, they are trying to enact in the state of Georgia as well as in Arizona laws that would allow Republican legislatures to simply overturn elections, to do what Donald Trump demanded that those officials. He's now being investigated for trying to do this illegally in Georgia. They want to make it legal, that simply the legislature can say, you know, we didn't like the way those Fulton County people voted. To hell with those black voters and brown voters and API voters. We're just going to put the person we want in as president, period. That is what they're trying to do. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Joy. And, you know, they fear the fact that Democrats are so organized. They fear the fact that Democrats, I will never forget, Joy, those long lines of black voters in Georgia when early votes started, who waited in line 10, 11, 12 hours with this look on their face of determination. We're not going to let these suppression tactics stop us. We're not going to let, you know, what happened to Stacey Abrams happen to Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, anybody else on the ticket here in Georgia. We're not going to allow that to happen. So I agree with Jason where I do think this is going to backfire. But to the point that Plouffe made, this is a systematic effort that Republicans are making across the country. We're seeing this in Georgia. We're seeing this in Arizona. Any state that has a Republican-held legislature, we're going to start seeing this happen everywhere. So make no mistake, we've got to get organized. The Senate simply has to pass H.R. 1. That is just the bottom line, because our democracy is at stake, and the Republicans are not going to stop until they try to get their way on this.
David, let me go back to you for just a moment, because Joe Biden did call it sick. He talked about the fact that this is Jim Crow sort of legislation. But we have some Democrats who seem to sort of relish the old Jim Crow days, the way the Senate used to operate. I'm thinking of people like Joe Manchin, who is clinging to the filibuster like a binky and saying he'll never let it go, no matter what. So I wonder if having a law like this pass in a state like Georgia, which, as you said, it's more than just trying to disenfranchise folks. So messing with absentee, that messes with Republicans. Republicans in the elections I've ever worked on, they vote absentee more than anybody else. So you're messing with them. But if you're then saying we can also just erase the results of elections and just install Donald Trump if he runs again in 2024, that is anti-democratic. Do you think that winds up moving somebody like Manchin? Or is he pretty much going to dig in on the Dixiecrat line here?
Well, now that it's real, by the way, Georgia obviously was the most important state in the 2020 election, presidential and Senate.
Clearly.
You're going to see this pass in other states. So the Republicans are being quite loud about their intentions here. So I think it should create the permission structure for a Joe Manchin, for a Kristen Sinema, even if it's a limited modification to the filibuster, to allow them to find a way to say yes, because at the end of the day, we're going to get on the other side of the pandemic. The economy will rebound. We'll probably even be able to tackle immigration. But if we basically hand elections over to politicians instead of the voters, the lights are out on America. So I think that in a way the Republicans are being so brazen here. It is giving the permission structure, hopefully, to the couple of reluctant Senate Democrats, because this isn't about Senate niceties. This isn't about different policy positions. This is literally about the survival of our democracy. And the Georgia bill goes so far that it's going to become the model. And I think you're going to see other states embrace it as the furthest point that Republicans can go. Yes, it should give Manchin and Sinema say, I didn't even want to do this. But it's clear that the Republicans are intent on suppression. It's clear that the Republicans are intent on taking control away from voters and elections officials. So I'm left no option but to do this. So we're all looking whether we should or not, and it's frustrating that it comes down to that, Joy. But I do think the permission structure should be there now for these reluctant Democratic senators.
Or to make D.C. a state and make Joe Manchin less relevant. Just for our audience, so you understand, this is NBC's reporting. This bill that Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, has just signed will dramatically limit early voting required for runoff elections like the two in January. So it would limit the exact kind of election that elected John Ossoff and Reverend Warnock. It would require mailing voters to have their driver's license numbers or their documentation to verify their identity instead of signature verification. They would limit drop boxes that you can guess where they're going to limit them, Jason. It would allow the state to take over local elections, basically meaning that you couldn't have another close election like what you saw there because the state, Brian Kemp, could simply take it over and put in the result he wanted. Kemp finalized the bill just over an hour after it cleared the General Assembly, leaving no doubt about its fate. The legislation passed along party lines 34 to 20, meaning local elections count here, 100 to 75 in the House. The Georgia bill, according to CNN, underwent major changes, going from a narrow two-page bill into a sweeping omnibus package to the brink of becoming law. It is sweeping, Jason. And I guess the question to you then is, how do you get to 51 votes in the Democratic side of the Senate with people like Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema in place?
So, Joy, last night I was talking to some of my contacts in Georgia, and they've all said this is going to take federal legislation. There's no amount of lawsuits. There's nothing, Vanita Gupta, there's nothing that the DOJ could do that will be enough because Trump has stacked the court so much. So this is going to come down to House Bill 1. It's going to come down to House Bill 4. And I have said all along, think about this. It's like the 5 hard speeds. It's like nobody's coming here for you, Otis. Nobody cared about Joe Manchin 3 years ago. This is the most popular he's ever been in his entire career. It's the most popular he'll ever be. He is going to milk this as long as he can until they darn near change it to the John Lewis Joe Manchin bill. But when that happens, when everybody is prostrate in front of him and begging him, he will allow some change of the filibuster. He'll get all the attention. He'll be rallied around like a hero, and then he'll be absolutely irrelevant. And that's what he also realizes. The moment that he allows any change in the filibuster, his power is weakened. But I think the significance of this bill, the fact that it could affect even him at one point, because if this same sort of policy were to be moved through in West Virginia, maybe somebody comes and challenges him, I think he will eventually change his mind. Not because it's the right thing to do, not because he cares about democracy, but because it will satisfy his ego, which is ultimately a driving force, unfortunately, for all too many members of Congress.
Not somebody, Jim Justice, the richest man in West Virginia, who was on the right side of the $15 an hour when Manchin was on the wrong side of it. When Jim Justice decided that he's going to run with his $1 billion against Joe Manchin, and this bill could just put Jim Justice in whatever the voters of West Virginia say, Joe Manchin might get religion. Adrienne Elrod, I'll leave you with the final question, because what has to happen now, it seems to me, that Joe Biden, I think, made some pretty clear and strong statements about his support for voting rights and his opposition for what we just saw happen in Georgia. What can he do, to sort of move the process along? Everyone has said where they stand on things like the filibuster. D.C. statehood could also be a factor. What do you think pragmatically he should be doing tonight? What calls should he be making?
Well, I mean, I think, first of all, he should be calling Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema and making sure that they are supporting the H.R. 1. This should not be a Democrat versus Republican issue, right? This is simply about the voting rights of all Americans, the most fundamental right that we have in America. Look, if he can find some Republican support, great. Joe Biden spent a long time in the Senate, so he knows the Senate very well. But I think when it comes to the filibuster, he made it very clear today that he is open to options. He is open to at least some sort of reform on the filibuster. And the bottom line is this, Joy, he's got to get his agenda passed. He knows that. And at some point, he is going to do whatever it takes to make that happen because he's got such a finite amount of time to make it happen. So I'm confident that he's going to get to the place where he needs to be so that we can get some of this legislation passed.
Joe Biden has a chance to be LBJ, but he's going to have to act like LBJ, like real quick, because he's got a very interesting caucus that he has to deal with. Adrienne Elrod, Jason Johnson, David Plouffe, thank you all very much.